Hi there, welcome to one more episode of the Allplane podcast, where aviation innovators and entrepreneurs share the coolest projects they are working on. And remember, you can find all the previous episodes of this podcast, as well as many other aviation stories, on our website, allplane.tv. That's ALLPLANE.tv. Today's episode is a bit unusual because we'll venture into the space where aviation intersects with sport. Jeff Zaltman is the CEO of AirRace-E. And what is AirRace-E? Well, if you're familiar with Formula One or its electric car equivalent, Formula E, you may have guessed the answer. AirRace-E is no less than the very first air race in the world designed specifically for electric aircraft. This is, of course, a highly competitive event where speed and performance matter, but the organizers expect that it will also be a driver for new technologies that can then be used outside of sport. For example, on electric aircraft that we might be using for many other things. This is also why big names of the aviation industry, such as Airbus, are also backing this initiative. If all goes according to plan, the first race is going to kick off in 2022 once Jeff and his team have selected the host city. But let's not get ahead of time, and let me welcome Jeff to the podcast. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Hi there. Fine, thank you.
Today it's a bit unusual that we are both in the same city, not physically in the same location, but in the same city. We're in Barcelona, from where you are leading a very interesting project, the AirRace-E, which I found very interesting because it's a very practical and very exciting application of electric aviation. What can you tell us about yourself and about AirRace-E?
Yeah, well, thank you, Mikel, for the introduction and for having me on Allplane. And it is strange, as you said. I mean, we're so close. We're here in the same city, but still having this remote contact due to the world we live in at the moment. But it's a pleasure to be here and talk to you. AirRace-E it's a very, very exciting project, really, on several levels. Fundamentally, AirRace-E it's an airplane race, but in particular, it's an electric airplane race. So it's the first all-electric, airplane racing series in the history of the world. It's a really, really historic and momentous project that's important because of, we're not just trying to be an exciting motorsport for fans and spectators, but doing something really, really important and meaningful for the industry to accelerate the development of the technology in electrification of aerospace.
First ever all-electric race.
Correct, exactly. It's the first electric air. So that's actually a good point you make, because air racing has a long history. So air racing's been around for 100 years. The type of racing that we do, which is pylon racing or formula air racing, has been around for over 75 years. And we've actually been organizing, our company, we've been organizing airplane races for a number of years all around the world, in China, Thailand, Spain, Indonesia, USA, in a format called Formula One air racing. And Formula One air racing is kind of the foundation for AirRace-E, which is also going to be based on the same formula as some classic air races that you'll have seen, but of course, converting it to the future and bringing it forward to the next generation and making it electric.
So you come from, your background is actually in sports and racing. What can you tell us about how this idea came about and how you decided to move into the all-electric aviation field?
Yeah, okay. Well, my personal background is perhaps a little bit varied. I've done kind of a number of things and worked in a number of areas. Predominantly, though, my background has been in aviation, in particular air racing. So I've been organizing airplane races for about 17 years now. I've done 15 or 20 major events around the world. I can actually legitimately say I'm the only one in the world who's organized international airplane races where the planes race against each other. So everyone's familiar with the Red Bull Air Race, for example. They did a great event, but it was a single plane time trial against a clock in more of an aerobatic format. What we do is we race 8 airplanes directly against each other on an oval circuit, all together. First one across the line wins. So, pure motorsport. So I've been organizing those events for many, many years. I have other backgrounds from automotive, aerospace, military, and been living in Europe. Despite my American accent, I've been living in Europe for over 20 years as well. And kind of happened into it really, I don't know if you'd say by chance, but through a series of kind of fortuitous areas. It wasn't something that I set out to do in the beginning, but then I found myself, and also being a pilot, I was exposed to these aviators that do these amazing things. Air racing is phenomenal, but the world didn't know about it. I mean, why doesn't the world know of this exciting motorsport out there? So I set out to try and, introduce mainstream sports fans to air racing. And in doing that, we had a lot of successes over the years. But in particular, in the past few years, it occurred to me, I realized that actually we have an opportunity now to take all of that heritage, all of that exciting motorsport, and make it relevant again to the industry, do something really good for the world, for the environment, for transportation and e-mobility by making it electric. And so it was just kind of an epiphany, something that just sort of happened, and I realized it. And as soon as that clicked in my head, we made the announcement and set out and started on this journey.
Well, there's a parallel here. It's the Formula E in car racing. Formula E is an electric race that is modeled after the Formula One, just that the cars are electric. I'm not an expert myself in car racing, but that's a topic that came up in one of the very first podcasts I did here with an engineer called Bjorn Ferm, which is an expert on electric propulsion, and he's a fan of Formula E, and he mentioned it. It came up in the conversation. So yeah, I looked into it. I can see some parallels here, how this project is going. So where are you now with this project? Because this hasn't happened yet, but the first edition is expected to take place in this year or next year. What are the plans?
Yeah, the first races are going to take place next year, 2022. I'm still trying to get accustomed to saying next year. So 2022, we're going to see a series of the first electric races will take place. We're currently in the middle of a bidding process with cities around the world. 60 cities entered the process a few months ago.
Wow, and 60.
Yeah,
wow.
60 have initially submitted their interest in bidding. And we're working that list down into 2 or 3 where we're going to race, and that should be completed in March. The end of March, we should know where we're going to be next year, and we'll be announcing those cities.
Is this shortlist public, or that's a closed?
No, it's not. We actually are just trying to figure out, do we make the shortlist public? We don't have a shortlist yet. Where the bids are due, the final bids are due at the end of January, and we'll make our shortlist from there and spend 2 months negotiating that with them. And we're very excited. We have some really, really, really exciting cities and candidates and locations all around the world that are interested, and plenty more interested for 2023 as well.
And so what does the city need to be able to host this event? Do you need a special type of circuit, or are you using these facilities from the car racing? What's the requirement?
Yeah, so we always hold our races at an airport. So that's important to us for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's a messaging reason. Airports are part of the solution to driving this technology forward, because there's no point in having electric airplanes if there's no infrastructure to support them. So we're working with airports to develop the capability and the capacity and the charging infrastructure, et cetera. And so we want to bring our races to the airports where it's going to matter. That's part of it. The other part is, of course, safety. So we have our races are very fast, very high performance aircraft. In motorsport has an element of risk in it. We want to be immediately at a location where they can land and have the necessary safety services nearby. So we're starting our races at airports. Now, in order to qualify, an airport needs a runway of about 1.5 kilometer minimum length, and an area of about 2.5 kilometers by 1.5 kilometer rectangular area. Now that's the kind of crowd line. That's the safety zone, but we race in a much tighter area than that. So it's a very small racing zone, but we need that space without, villages underneath the roads. And if the city has that, the rest of it's easy. They just have to have the will.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen some renderings of what this racetrack looks like. And basically it would be the runway, and you trace an oval route around the runway. And then there's also some stalls for people to watch from one of the sides, right? A bit like what you have in car racing. And then you have these pylons. That the pylons play a key role, right?
Exactly.
In marking the itinerary that this oval shape that the planes have to fly around.
Yeah. In fact, our sport is often categorized as it's called pylon racing. And that's exactly right. We race around an oval pattern around 6 pylons. And we race, by the way, at about 10 meters above the ground. And the race is about 450 kilometers per hour with 8 planes going around very low and very fast to the ground. So we race right up to those pylons. And those pylons are the race markers. And yeah, that's the race line.
How much space do you need for 8 planes? I guess they fly very close to each other so fast. How much space do you need? Because there could be moments where all the planes kind of cluster together, and at that speed can be dangerous eventually.
Yeah, the race lane, the track, if you will, is about 75 meters wide, and it becomes quite tight because you can't go beyond that, because then you're starting to encroach upon the audience or the spectators. So there is a hard limit. So you can get usually 3, possibly 4 planes actually line abreast, passing each other in that space. What happens is, as you go around the pylon, you go around the corner. I know you can't see my hands, but the planes are going to be banking, and the angle is going to be different. And you're not allowed to pass over or above or below another plane. So what happens is, when the planes turn, even if you're parallel on the straightaway, you're kind of underneath them, so to speak, from a visual point of view, in the turn. So you'd have to climb. So what happens is, you get planes often climbing higher to get the space to turn, rather than going on the outside. It's a very interesting dynamic. It's motorsport in 3 dimensions, which you never see anywhere else.
True.
So it's got a lot of challenging elements in it.
Mm-hmm. We're talking obviously about small planes and one pilot planes. What are the rules for the design of those planes? And what can they have on board? What they cannot have on board? And are there any specific minimum requirement or maximum requirements for things like the batteries, weight, other equipment they might be bringing on board?
Yeah. So it's a formula race. So we're actually governed by the Formula Air Racing Association, which is an association which governs the rules for Formula Air races. So what we have is a formula to construct the airplanes, and that includes a formula to run the procedures of the race. But the airplanes have certain requirements, which is based on the existing format of Formula One air racing, which is set up by the International Formula One Air Racing Association, but converted to electric. So we try to maintain as many of the rules that are existing in the sport to date as possible, and only change it where necessary for the powertrain. A lot of those rules, of course, are about safety and other, and fairness, of course, from a sporting point of view. And a lot of them are really designed, importantly, to help us basically drive the sport forward in a way that will have relevance to future products in the industry. In other words, we don't want to just make it a fun motorsport. We will actually want to test and challenge the technologies. So it's a competition of technology as well. And to drive that forward is one thing, but we also need to make sure that we're testing things and driving it forward in a direction that the industry is going to want it to be driven forward. In other words, that we can take technologies from our race with lessons learned and migrate them, transfer them to actual consumer, commercial products in the future. So the rules, it already starts way back in the rules. We have to set up the rules in such a way that it drives that innovation. So it is another layer there of thought that has to go into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned the spillovers, industrial spillovers. I noticed that you have Airbus as one of your major supporter. I don't know if we can call it a sponsor, a supporter, partner.
All of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the role of Airbus in this? Are they providing technology? Are they providing funding?
Yeah, again, all of that. I mean, Airbus has come on board. We actually refer to them as our official founding partner. So they were the first partner to come on board. We're the first major partner. We had the university and some other people that were kind of helping out, but they were the first industry practitioner that came on and said, okay, we see the validity of this. We understand that this is going to help us take our future products into use and to development and then the market. And so they got involved. They got involved in a very big way, a very important way. And so just to be clear, I mean, they're not building an airplane, for example. They're not building a race plane. They're not going to be a race team. They are a series partner, which means they're here to help all the teams across all the different race teams, and provide that kind of that wisdom, the industry wisdom, and the research background, lessons learned, things like that, and some connections in the marketplaces, that are useful. So that's important. We also have, other industry partners, ANSYS, for example. We have, it's a world-leading simulation software company, and they're our official simulation software partner. And what they do is they're really rolling up their sleeves and digging in with the teams, helping the teams actually, test their designs in simulation environments to help them become race ready and design and develop and build and come to fruition in time. So ANSYS are an integral, important partner as well. And we have a number of other partners that are in particular involved with each team, and a lot of things going on. And I think just to highlight, we are an open platform. So the idea is that there's a place in ARAC for everyone. Everyone in the industry can have a place here. With respect to Airbus, if Boeing wants to come on board, there's space for that, and we all know that, and we're all welcoming that. It's a place where the industry can come and collaborate, test, compete, learn, and it's a neutral zone where we should have a place for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Because there are 8 teams registered. That's, I guess, that's the maximum number, because there are some constraints of space. Yeah. And they are the ones that are investing in their equipment, right? So each team comes with its own approach to technology, and they customize their aircraft. I actually had the chance to speak recently with one of the people that will take part in the race, the founder of an electric seaplane company in Norway that's going to be very soon in the podcast as well, talking about this project. And he mentioned that he is involved in one of the teams that is going to take part in the coming edition. All these teams, where did you find them? I mean, do they come from all over the world? What's the profile, and what do they expect to get out of this? Because I guess it's quite a big investment. Is there prize money? Is it the let's say the exposure they might get to a certain audience? What's the business model behind this whole event, this whole competition?
Well, at the end of the day, everything we do is about the teams. If we're going to develop the technology and have great motorsport and make this happen and reach our vision, it all comes down to, it's all about the teams. It's about the aircraft, the engineers, the crew chiefs, the pilots, the people that make this happen. So we spend a great deal of attention and time on, making it a compelling, interesting opportunity for them to come on board, and making sure that it's going to be a good and commercially viable opportunity for them. So We have, I should mention, we actually have, I think it's now 17 or 18 registered teams, but we have 6 or 8 official teams, which have a race number. There's they're more advanced stage, for example, but we actually have a number of other teams that are ambitiously trying to join the series. Eventually, we expect to have 16 teams at each event. Maybe not next year for the first series, but by series 2. And as we mentioned, there's 8 airplanes in one race, but we can have different races.
Okay.
So the teams come from all over the world, all different backgrounds. Some are from universities, others are from aircraft manufacturers. Well, the one you mentioned is an aircraft manufacturer. We have some that are just groups of engineers that have a brilliant concept on how to do it. And so there's really quite a varied background from all over the world. And they all get something different out of it.
How you become one of your accredited teams? Do you have like some sort of application process? Is there a fee involved to become one of the official teams in the competition?
Yeah, so there's a vetting process. We have to have a number of conversations. We kind of, as you say, kind of kick the tires a little bit, make sure the teams have what's required, kind of a realistic approach to what they're trying to achieve. It is a costly and technologically challenging and demanding project it'll take them for a few years or so into the future. So we do need to make sure they're ready and legitimate. Most of them that approach us are very, very serious and are very, motivated and have the resource. So we take them through those initial stages as well, and get them up to a level where they're ready to go, and they can start to seek sponsorship and other commercial opportunities to carry them forward. So it's we do some vetting as well. The commercial terms are the subject of the official teams that we have relationships with them. What we're trying to do is we don't charge entry fees. There's some small administrative fees, but we don't charge entry fees. Our idea is that it's costly enough to spend the resource in getting the technology right. So we don't do that, and we enable them. Interestingly, by coming on board as a team, there are advantages and benefits that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that the teams get by joining, and they have access to our partners and software and deals and components and motors, et cetera, that are part of our ecosystem. So there's huge financial incentives to join.
Mm-hmm. And the actual mechanics of the race, I don't know if we mentioned the length. Took some notes here. It's 5 kilometers if we put it in a straight line.
Lap, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, each lap is 5 kilometers, mm-hmm. and it's 4 laps total. So the winner is the one that gets to that completes these 4 laps in the
20-kilometer distance in the total.
Yeah, in the shortest possible time. And it's one round, or are there different rounds? So it's just going to be one, like these 4 laps, and that's it when it's done, or are there kind of?
No, the planes race again. So this is another interesting part, because the planes are going to be expected to race within 2 hours after having the previous race, which means mm-hmm. they have to land and fast charge within an hour. And then of course there's other preparation that they'll need to do, and be ready to race again in 2 hours. So that's part of the challenge. It's not just flying the technology, it's the turnaround time. That's a major part of it, recharging.
And they need to charge the same battery. So
correct.
Okay, so they need to come up with a battery that it's not only performing when it comes to peak speed, but also has to have endurance and be rechargeable very quick.
Exactly. Yeah, we do recharging up to 800 volts in a very short amount of time. Really, the target's about 40 minutes. So, mm-hmm. So that and that's the challenge. Again, our flying characteristics and our charging characteristics and everything we're doing is in the envelope of the technology that's available now, but it is right at the edge. So, pushing these aircraft to those limits and having these goals set are achievable today, but it's very tight. So it is the leading edge of the technology that can do this.
Very, very interesting. And the the batteries. Do you have a specific? I don't think we mentioned them earlier. Are there specific limits in the power they can carry in these batteries?
There's not in the volume. The laws of physics will determine that, because the weight of the battery is quite expansive. The voltage, we do have limits in the voltage, 800 volt maximum. We have a power limit of 150 kilowatts. So right now the formula class is 150 kilowatt max power is the limit. There is a period of time for half a minute we are allowed to boost that up to 175 kilowatts. So there's a power limitation. So basically, that just computes into what do you need to get across, around 4 laps and have time to land safely and have enough charge left. And, based on the weight of the plane and the type of cell and the battery, et cetera, they can calculate the weight of the battery and how much charge they need. So we don't have any requirement on the size of the battery, but we do require they land with charge, sufficient charge left in the battery. We have ways of measuring that to make sure that they don't just glide back and calculate it too tightly.
And what periodicity is this race going to have? Is it a one-off once a year, or are you planning something like the Formula One, where you would have a whole calendar of events through the year?
Yeah, we're trying to grow it. So we're going to be racing, as we mentioned, next year, at least one race, but we're expecting to have 3 races next year. The idea is that it's a points series, so the points will accrue throughout the series, and we are going to be going around the world globally, and by 2025 grow to 8 events. So that should probably be the steady state, is 8 events. And we'll be as far around the world as we can reach, because this is a topic that affects everybody.
Yeah, indeed. And are you planning to sell TV rights or broadcast on the internet?
We expect this to absolutely be a mainstream sport in a handful of years. So our goal is to bring this out to the audiences, to raise awareness of the topic, but also because it's exciting motorsport. So we're every bit as exciting as other car races or motorcycle races, and we believe that there's a consumer market of fans to watch the sport. So that is our goal. In the short term, we're looking very much at technology partners, but in the long term, the growth of the sport will depend on the fan base, and that will, of course, rely on television coverage and media exposure. So in our past events that I had mentioned, we already organized, which is under the brand Air Race 1 for Formula One air racing. We currently already have TV all around the world. We're on channel. We film the shows and broadcast them on sports channels, typical kind of cable sports channels around the world. And we do live internet broadcast. So I think digital, especially now, as we talk about the new normal of the COVID world, we are very much looking at our events as a digital streaming property. And then, of course, if and when and how we can bolt on the spectator side of it, we'll do so. But it very much is a digital stream, potentially broadcast. But I think that's the way we're going to be going, because we want to reach the most people possible, and make it as accessible to everyone as we can.
Makes sense. And just to wrap it up, for people that want to learn more about the Air Race E, what channels do you recommend, apart from your website, of course? It's Air Race E altogether, as in one word.com. Other channels, YouTube, social media that people can follow?
Yeah, so we're finally, now that we're be kind of expanding our reach, we've got the foundation of what we're trying to do set. We are now starting to reach out to the fans in the market. And so we're becoming much more active on social media. So, we have, Facebook page, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. We have all of those channels that we're developing. There's information going out regularly. We also have a newsletter that comes out monthly that people can keep in touch with us on. You can sign up on our website, which you said is airace.com. And yeah, we've got, even just the videos. I mean, there's our sister race, the Air Race 1, also has a channel on YouTube where you can see this type of racing, the actual whole race and the whole pro TV programs in our Air Race 1 channel. And you can get an idea because the Air Race E is going to look very, very similar, just the electric. So you can already see kind of what we do now. So yeah, it's we're going to be hitting all the digital channels. Hopefully no one will miss us, but if you want to get in early and get a view of what we do, then yeah, check us out on Facebook and the like.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for letting us know, and all the best with the project. Thanks for being today here on the podcast.
Thank you, Mikael. It's been a pleasure and very interesting. Yeah, thanks.
Before you go, and if you like this podcast, a quick reminder that it would be absolutely great if you could please give it a rating on Apple, Spotify, or whichever platform you're using, or recommend it to a friend or whomever might be interested. Thank you very much, and see you soon.